Thank you, Mr. Chairman and General. Thank you for your service, your leadership. You're clearly making a difference. And to you, Secretary Wilson, just my deep and genuine thanks for your leadership, for your voice of reason and calmness and just professionalism throughout. What you have added to this administration is greatly, greatly appreciated and will be deeply missed. I think it's great to have all of us saying this. I do wish that we could influence the decision, but respect that the decision that you have made, but your contribution is just greatly and deeply appreciated. Thank you so very much. And I thank you for the conversation that we had in my office last week. My opportunity to share some of the issues and concerns that I had. You heard me out on my concerns with the Space Force, and we had some discussion about the F-35s. I appreciate, General Goldfein, your explanation here as to how the F-15, fourth generation F-35, your Swiss cheese analogy, kind of helps somebody like me appreciate where this might fit in, because I have been concerned that this might be a dilution of the support towards this fifth generation fleet with our F-35s. So I appreciate that. And I also thank you, Secretary, so much for your continued reminder that we can do so much more from the state's perspective to assist our airmen and their families with a focus on schools and what we do with the licensure. We're making a little bit of headway on the licensure side of that in my state, but it's a great reminder for all of us, because it's these differences that do keep our families in the Air Force, in our services, and there, and so it is appreciated. I wanted to speak to Jay Park, as well as the efforts that we have with training. And I note with some appreciation that the posture statement that you presented this morning identifies Jay Park as one of the regions that's going to receive the targeted funding. I think we recognize the extraordinary asset that we have with that training range up north. The posture statement also speaks to the need to build additional capacity with adversary air with the aggressor. I understand that the current fleet of 18 primary assigned F-16 aggressor aircraft at Eielson is insufficient. We've had a chance to talk a little bit about this, Madam Secretary. So I'm told that an additional 6 F-16s are immediately needed to support the aggressor mission, and that more can be useful or needed. So the question to both of you this morning is, with regards to the need for additional support on the aggressor squadron, can the Air Force fulfill this requirement? I think we recognize that when we have this extraordinary training capacity up there, that the ultimate training is when you can get that hands-on in the air with the actual aggressor. So broadly to the issue of Jay Park, but more specific to the adequacy of the aggressors.
Yes, ma'am. You know, it's something we don't talk about a lot in terms of Jay Park, but you know this, is that very often we have international partners who either to Nellis for our red flag or prefer to do something a little bit lower visibility. And so they can go in and they can fly on this incredible range, one of the largest ranges we have at Jay Park. So we do have money in the budget, $8 million, to upgrade the threats simulators as we go forward. And it's one of it's our premier range for doing that. When it comes to aggressors, we're actually short on aggressors, both at local training, home station, and in our two large range areas, both Nellis Air Force Base and up at Jay Park in Alaska. The way that we're getting after it is a combination of what we call organic, the F-16s that we own, and contract adversary air, and there are more and more companies that are getting in the business of providing contract air. We're also working with the Navy that uses that as well. So I think what you're going to see is us continuing to push for this right combination, the sweet spot between contract and organic to get at the adversary air issue.
If I could just add, one of the things, I was out in Utah at Hill Air Force Base, and of course I flew with the aggressors to see Jay Park when I was up in Alaska. But one of the things that the F-35 pilots mentioned to me was it would really help their training and readiness to have to reduce the requirement to fly adversary air. So we're using U.S. pilots to study adversary tactics and pretend to be the bad guys, when maybe we can do that with contractors so that our pilots who really would go in to fight for the United States can focus on practicing their skills rather than just imitating an adversary. And I thought that was a good point, and it's the reason why we're shifting to see whether we can do more contracted adversary air.
Great, I appreciate that. I know Senator Baldwin wanted to ask one more question. Let me just very quickly ask, and you responded to Senator Hovind's question about the Arctic, and you mentioned the Arctic Challenge exercise that will involve Alaska, Canada, Sweden. Obviously, these exercises are critically important. I always ask the question at any of these appropriations hearings to just ensure that we're keeping our eyes on the Arctic. And sometimes it seems that the Air Force in Alaska is more Pacific-facing than Arctic-facing. And so when you say what you have shared today, that is comforting, it's good, it's necessary. But it's one thing to do the training exercises. It's another thing to make sure that we are making the kinds of investments that we need to address the emerging defense challenges in the Arctic, recognizing that it is just a different environment up there. Are you satisfied with where we are?
Ma'am, I'm satisfied, but I will tell you that this is an opportunity to highlight the important partnership we have with Canada in NORAD, and we defend our homeland together, just as we have for 6 decades. And so as Canada modernizes and we modernize, us being able to be interoperable in both 5th generation and 4th generation is absolutely essential as we go forward.
Yeah. Madam Secretary?
I would just say one of the things that people think about the Arctic strategy from a naval point of view, that and of course the Navy is ship-based, but the majority of Defense Department infrastructure in the Arctic is United States Air Force, and we have to know the domain. So that is about the kind of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance missions there, the missile warning missions, which are really focused about the threat that could, and historically, that's where we put the ballistic missile early warning radars, because of the threat coming potentially from that direction. So there's been a number of upgrades that we've done there, both at Clear Alaska and also at Thule. And the deepening partnership with our allies, who are Arctic allies, the Danes, the Swedes, the Norwegians, the Finland, and of course Canada, are going to be invaluable going forward.
Well, we appreciate the eye on the Arctic, because we know it is being viewed by others, perhaps in a different lens, and we need to be ever aware. So again, thank you both.